On tape 8, we explored cognitive editing, which is the art of using our own default negative thoughts to build preferred thoughts that we can then use to create a brand new default, one that will support our desired behaviors and our desired outcomes. The goal of cognitive editing is to create the highest quality of thought possible, which we can then load back into the system to create this new default. This slide shows an example of a typical progression from poor to high quality thought. Notice how the language and wording changes as we travel down the slide towards the better quality thinking. The poor quality thought contains a definitive statement that kills any possibility of doing anything other than overeating. The okay thought gets a bit better with a tentative statement about trying to do better. The good thought says, yes, I can. And it gets even better with the affirmative, I will eat properly. And finally, the best statement uses, I am eating properly, and defines exactly what that means. Now, this is not, of course, the entire collection of thoughts between poor and high quality regarding overeating. There are literally an infinite number of variations along that continuum, and we can always and should always be working towards the highest quality of thought. Once we've obtained the highest quality of thought that we can muster, the next task is to upload these thoughts into the system. Uploading refers to any of the various methods of creating synaptic activity in the brain through sensory input. This slide shows the various modes of input arranged in what I call a hierarchy along the continuum from the weakest to the strongest. Now, I cannot be absolutely positive that they're in the exact order from weakest to strongest in terms of synaptic activity, since there's no real research out there to prove such, but based on all the available data and the power of deductive reasoning, I'm pretty sure this is close. So as you move down the slide, each activity takes just a bit more synaptic activity than the previous one. Now, further good news is that each progressive activity draws on all of the synaptic activity or synaptic networks constructed by the previous one. So if you follow them in order from 1 to 8, by the time we're watching a videotape, a selfie that we have created, we are pulling in all of the synaptic activity required to make the selfie, from thinking and writing initially to speaking, listening, and then finally watching the tape. When we use all of these inputs, we literally exponentially amplify the signal that thought alone could generate. And this is exactly what we want to do. Use all the available methods to accelerate this process and literally saturate the brain. The name of the game is to create the highest number of synapses and produce the highest quality of thought that is the most excellent that we can possibly do. By using as many sensory inputs as we can, we're engaging the entire cerebral cortex. This slide shows that there are 4 lobes in the cerebral cortex: frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal. Each of these lobes is responsible for a different kind of processing. When we run through all of the steps it takes to get from producing a thought alone to producing a video, we have used motor processing, sensory, visual and auditory processing, and language processing. To put that in perspective, to complete one thought might require about 10,000 synapses to construct. By contrast, a completed videotape, 2 minutes long, might take 10 million synapses to construct. That means we've stepped up the power of thought by 1,000 times. This is a practical way to take a quantum leap towards building a new thought process, a new perspective. Listening to and watching ourselves on tape is quite simply a super powerful experience. It's also a great way to have our thoughts locked and loaded, ready to fire at a moment's notice. It's amazing how much information one can pack into a short 2-minute videotape, which has come to be known as a selfie. One can watch the videotape or simply listen to the audio portion. These tapes are great to listen to in what I call the white spaces of our days. Standing in line with your earbuds in, waiting for a meeting to begin, or maybe during a boring meeting, if you can pull it off, while jogging or while exercising, right before you drift off to sleep at night. The possibilities are endless. This idea got started for me when I was preparing for a TEDx Fort Wayne presentation in May of 2012. And if you're interested in viewing this presentation, click on the link on my website. What I had to do was condense my ideas into 8 minutes, which is actually quite hard to do. So to make sure I was hitting the 8-minute mark, I started videotaping myself. With my new smartphone, I had just purchased an iPhone. It was really easy and fun to do. I could also then monitor my body language, my physical movements, facial expressions, etc. Now, it felt a bit strange at first, but one gets over that very quickly, and I soon began discovering the many advantages of videotaping myself and watching the playback. I could listen to myself anywhere I had 8 minutes to myself. I kept my earbuds handy and plugged them in many times. I could practice virtually anywhere, which is pretty handy for boring trips to the mall and long drives down to Bloomington. I quickly realized it was a powerful way to drive the messages deep into my brain. And that's really where I got this idea for audiovisual journaling, or making these selfies. I found that when I watched myself and heard myself giving my own presentation, I learned it almost immediately. Of course, I'd always rehearsed it out loud, but this brought a new and more powerful dimension to the effort. I realized right then and there this was going to be a pretty powerful tool for building new perspectives. I now use the technique all the time, not only for getting ready for presentations, but for uploading any thoughts that I want to stick in my head. It has become a staple of my practice. I now teach the process to every single client, and I get amazing results. Most of my older clients find it a bit weird at first, but the younger set, they've grown used to the selfie, and they love it. I challenge each and every one of you viewing this tape to at least give it a try. It only seems weird because we're not used to seeing ourselves from that perspective. But when you think about it, we hear our own voice every day, and we usually view our own image in the mirror every day, so those things are not new. We're just seeing them from a different perspective. As one of my clients reminded me, her grandfather used to talk about having a little talk with himself. So you can think of these short selfie videos as just the high-tech digital version of having a little talk with yourself. In the age of smartphones, most of us have a super high-tech computer in the palm of our hands that can do amazing things. And my goal is to teach folks how to use this computer to maximize the sensory input necessary to really create new perspectives and truly change the way we think. The tape that follows this one, tape number 10, is a 2-minute selfie that I have created using thoughts that I have taken directly from the negative perspectives of clients I've treated in my practice. The tape consists of 2 minutes of edited thoughts that have been assembled into a short preferred perspective. I've titled the segment Deep Thoughts and added a few bells and whistles, which is actually quite easy to do with today's user-friendly video editing programs. This sample video took me less than 15 minutes to put together in iMovie and is a good example of the kind of power that one can generate in a very short period of time. So sit back, enjoy the next tape, and think about the possibilities. They are endless.